guys, it's Sam, and today we're gonna do the Midyear Book Freakout Tag. Before we get into it, can I just say how July is kind of like a second January for me. I love like beginning of the year, end of the year, and middle of the year bookish content. I fucking dig it. It's so great because it's like goals and check-ins with goals and wrap-ups of goals, like all these times of the year. I love it. It's my favorite. Like January, July, and December are my favorite times to make content. So we have some little check-ins. So we have this going on, then we're gonna have some like reading goals and new goals check-ins. Oh, I love the energy. But let's get into it. This is a tag that has been out for years, and the original creator I don't think makes videos anymore. So I got these questions from Angela of Literature Science Alliance. I've recently found her channel. Someone recommended her to me when I was venting about not being able to find like newer channels that I wasn't familiar with that did a lot of like sci-fi and fantasy content. So I've been watching her videos a lot. But anyway, she did this tag plus some additional questions that she had found from another video. So this is 15 questions. Let's get into it. First is the best book you've read so far this year. This is different from the best sequel, which is also a question on here. This was a little bit challenging because I've read like 5-star books every month this year. I've been having a really good reading month. I've also done some rereads of old favorites, but I didn't really want to talk about those because I wasn't originally reading those in 2022. They are old favorites that I already knew that I loved. So for brand new non-sequel releases and to not repeat myself a ton of times, I'm gonna say The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reed. This one has stood out as like the test of time. Like 6 months in, I still think about this book. I'm really excited about her new release, which is about to come out or is out now. If you hear noises, it's because Binks is like literally right here off camera. I love how this was written. I love like all the themes. I love the fairy tale stuff, like fairy tale-esque stuff, mythology stuff, exploration of religions, different gods, sentient forest stuff, the romance, like everything. So this has really stood out as like one of the best books I've read this year. Next is the best sequel that I've read so far this year. Again, I didn't want to do any that were like rereads or anything. So first would be The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty, also The Empire of Gold. So the rest of the Daemabad trilogy. This is such a good series, one of my new favorite series. I've done reviews of all the books in this series and of like the whole series, so good. And then more recently, Come Tumbling Down by Shauna Maguire, which is the 5th book in the Wayward Children series. I recently got back into reading that series, very happy to be back in that world. And this was following characters that we have already followed, so like established that I loved them. In one of the worlds that is my favorite from that series, which is the Moors, and just the exploration of all the stuff and how weird that world is. If we could get a full novel in that world, I'd be so happy. Such a good series overall. Number 3 is new releases for 2022 that I haven't gotten to yet, but still want to. So many. I'm also not great about new releases. I don't have like a ton that I add to my list all the time, and I tend to read a lot of backlist, but there are a number of new releases that I still want to get to for this year. This Wicked Fate by Kaylin Bayron. This is the sequel to This Poison Heart, which I loved, and I will again talk about shortly. This like just came out though. Then Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. I actually own a copy, but Binks is now on my lap, so I can't grab it. But I really loved all the books that I've read by her thus far and just haven't like thought like, I'm gonna pick up that like literary speculative book yet. Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse, the second book in whatever that series is called. The first book was Black Sun. I read Black Sun, I believe early 2020, I wanna say. Or was it late 2020? No, I think it was early 2020. But I wanna read this, so I kinda wanna reread the first book first though. I feel like I remember a lot of things, but then I feel like I don't. So I want to reread the first book, I'm thinking. Also, I've heard this is a little bit of like a transition, like second book syndrome a little bit. So do I want to wait for the next book? I don't know. Then Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I'm forgetting the name and I didn't write it down. So this is the book. I've just been hearing a lot of good things about this. It's a beautiful book too, which is not something that's deterring me. Like I definitely am like, I want to read this because it's so gorgeous, but I've just been hearing a lot of good things about it in general. And then Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed, like I mentioned earlier, which is either, I don't think that's out yet. So, nice segue. Most anticipated for the second half of the year. I believe Juniper and Thorn is second half of the year. I don't know when that comes out. And we have Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Very excited for this. It's gonna be weird as shit. Can't wait. Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. This series is so lovely. I love all of her like hope punk sci-fi stuff. Love on the Brain by Allie Hazelwood. I'm not reading a ton of romance these days besides like my tried and true favorites, and I really like the Love Hypothesis. So I'm excited about this next STEM romance. Bloodmarked by Tracy Dion. I should probably reread Legendborn, but I've been waiting for this one. So excited. And Babel by R.F. Kuang. I'm hoping to finish, I think I will. I need to finish the Poppy War. They're not related. I just would like to finish her first series before getting into the next one. Number 5 is Biggest Disappointment. Jade City by Fonda Lee. You guys already know I've been talking about this a lot. I wanted to love this. This was a 3-star for me, but it did almost put me in a reading slump. I wanted to love this. For all intents and purposes, I should have. Everything that this has is things I typically like. I don't know. I'm still very conflicted on if I want to continue on and read the sequel because people are really conflicted. Like some people are like, oh my God, I love the sequel so much more. You totally should. Some people are like, oh my God, I like the sequel so much less. Like, I just don't know. I think there are more conflicting opinions out there about this series than I thought that there was when I originally read it. Like I was really fully expecting to love it and I should have, and I didn't. And I'm still sad about it. Biggest surprise. I've had a number of surprises reading-wise this year. The most recent one being Elder Race by Adrian Chipkowski. I was just reading this one for the novellas. It was nominated for a Hugo, so I read this recently. This little novella, I just love because it's a little sci-fi fantasy fusion book that covers a lot of really interesting topics, just the way it was written and everything. I was shocked by how much I loved that one. Earlier this year, This Poison Heart by Kaylin Bayron. I was like, oh, I don't know, YA fantasy, I haven't really been vibing with it lately. I freaking loved this. It's not perfect, but the nature magic, the Greek mythology stuff, the sapphic story, the witch stuff, like everything really spoke to me. And Iron Widow by Siren J. Zhao. People really were talking a lot about this, was very hyped, and I still really loved it. This was also a top contender for best book I've read so far this year. But the Divine Feminine Rage, polyamorous relationship stuff going on, giant mechs fighting. This was so cool. Favorite new author, and this is a debut or new to you. Some of the authors that I just mentioned, Kaylin Bayron and Siren J. Zhao, I will continue to read stuff by them as they put things out. Ava Reed, I have like very high hopes with. Again, hopefully Juniper and Thorn is just as good, but I've been hearing that it is. Some authors I've already read but got more solidified as favorites were like S.A. Chakraborty because I finished that series, R.F. Kuang because I've continued that series. Yeah, a lot of really good authors this year. Newest fictional crush. There's 2, and they're vastly different. First is Charlie, is that his name? From Book Lovers. I loved this. This is one of the only romance books that I've read this year, and so he's been one of the only book boyfriends, because I really don't get super into like fantasy book boyfriends as I used to. Maybe I just haven't read as many. I don't know what the disconnect is there. But I loved him. I would totally date him. The other one I would also totally date, just very different, and that is Vakar from Chilling Effect. Basically, if you've played Mass Effect and you know that I fucking love it, he is essentially a Gareth Thane hybrid, which means I'm in love with him. Is he an alien? Yes, he is. In a post-Ice Planet Barbarian age, I feel like it's fine and more accepted. Am I outing myself as a monster effer on the internet? Potentially, but it only applies to aliens. I feel like it's a slippery slope though. Newest favorite character. Not a ton of, like, again, new. I already really liked some characters that I then continued the series, so those aren't new favorite characters. I would say as far as new favorite characters, Angrboda from Witch's Heart. I love a character based in mythology. She's the mother of monsters. I adore her. Yeah, I now I almost want like a tattoo of like her and her children at this point. Like she's so fucking cool. I love her. Book that made you cry. I cried a lot during Book Lovers. It is not a sad book, but it resonated, okay? I don't remember a lot of books that I've cried at because usually I'll shed like a little tear. I think I definitely cried during The Witch's Heart. But I also remember actively crying during House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I know, I am basic. Number 11 is a book that made you happy. A Close in Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. I love her books. They bring me so much joy. And these little character-driven stories, I just love them. Number 12 is favorite book to film adaptation. I have not watched any book to film adaptations this year. For the second half of the year, maybe it'll be Persuasion, the Netflix one that's coming out. But the closest thing to this, and because I want to talk about it, is Arcane. This is one of the only TV shows that I've watched this year, and this is a like video game world to TV adaptation. But I don't even play the video game. I just really love this. I'm obsessed with it. Number 13 is favorite video I've done so far this year. Here on YouTube, I would say like my characters that have witchy energy video, which I'm going to continue and do like as a series of different magic users and people that have different energy of different magic users. But I would also say like my creativity is very much sparked by TikTok these days. I'm like, as I've said, I'm not gonna leave this platform completely for TikTok. I still really enjoy long form content. But for my like fun, fast, videos, like those I feel so much more creative with, take a little bit less energy sometimes. So yeah, if you want more content from me, you're not already following me on TikTok, that's also where I do stuff. I try to post there like at least once a day. Number 14 is the most beautiful book you've gotten so far this year. I don't know. The cover for This Wicked Fate is really pretty. I don't know if I bought Chilling Effect this year. I kind of want to say that I did. I kind of want to say that I bought this at an independent bookstore, but I'm not sure. But this is gorgeous. But also so many covers these days are pretty. Or at least like fine. There's so few like ugly covers these days that most covers I look at, I'm like, that's nice. And finally, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I'm gonna be doing a whole video on this because I'm gonna be doing an update to my goals. So I'm gonna do a goals check-in and then the last half of the year reading goals, and that includes books that I want to read before the end of the year. So that's either gonna be posted before or after this one, but shortly before or after. So check that out for all of that, because that's gonna be a more in-depth video. So yeah, that is it for the Midyear Book Freakout Tag. Comment down below, let me know some of the answers for you. I would say tell me your best book so far this year and your biggest disappointment. I would love to know. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.